There are certainly more rank odours, but it is revolting to discover mildew in towels. I'm certain the authorities would deem it less than hygienic. Hot and wet, a perfect breeding ground for mold. Pasteur would doubtless pay for samples of the captive bacteria.
His institute deals only in virulent and contagious forms, neither of which this is.
Perhaps, but you won't deny it is disgusting. Have you ever considered fumigating this place? It couldn't help but improve the atmosphere.
Members appreciate the traditional bouquet of odours. Most find comfort in familiar scents. You would also, in time.
Not if I lived 1,000 years. I'm not impressed with your choice of tobacco.
The patrons don't complain.
Perhaps the smell conceals some other scent. Perhaps you are encouraging some less savoury activities here?
Leave off. What about a membership? Think you'd like to join?
When I decide I want to spend my leisure conversing with dunces while smoking bad tobacco and acquiring pestiferous skin ailments, you'll be informed. The premises seem lightly attended. What amenities are available here?
We have an exercise room, a steam bath, modern individual steam cabinets, and 2 invigorating cold water plunges. You could do worse.
We should like to see the baths.
Baths are baths. There are several members back there au naturel. They don't appreciate intruders.
Perhaps we will become members, Russell. It looks a decent enough place.
Sound thought. Put colour in your frog-belly complexion, improve muscle tone, and you get to meet a nice class of person. All for a modest cost. I'll get your paperwork, shall I?
Of course, we'd need to inspect all the facilities.
Fine, but as I've said, don't pester the clients, and the baths are not available to you at the moment.
Who are the men on the drying couches, Mr. Russell?
Haven't a clue.
You don't recognize your clientele?
I know a nosy Parker from a paying customer.
Neville's has a appalling taste in tobacco. It's an insult to the patrons.
Men in their condition probably can't tell the difference.
Nonsense. They're enervated, Watson, not dead. Though they soon may be, given what they're smoking. How does Russell strike you, Watson?
A bully with a patina of gentility. Your inquiry puts him in a bind. He can't boast the privacy that comes with membership, and answer your questions about Pratt without betraying what he's already sold.
I suppose I might inform him that he won't be collecting another penny from the Pratt account. Can you envision Pratt wasting away in such a place?
Without difficulty. Given the style of his digs, this would suit him down to the ground. Perhaps a little on the tame side, but suitable.
I earnestly counsel you, Watson, to touch nothing.
Your concern is appreciated, Holmes, but in this instance probably misplaced. As baths go, this one appears relatively sanitary.
As rivers go, the Thames is cleaner than the Ganges, but I wouldn't swim in either. Point?
Point taken. Sanitary was perhaps not the proper word.
Who are the habitués of this spa, Watson?
I've heard the young Turks from Whitehall are trying to invest the place with an aura undeserved by its merits. They may be joined by old India hands who simply crave the heat.
Not a self-indulgent crowd, then?
Not necessarily.
I wish to visit the baths, Watson, with or without Russell's permission.
Fine. Can I help? I would say he looks a rough customer.
Force is odious when subtler leverage will suffice. I'll request a refund on my olfactory senses if the hygienic standards of this place are above reproach. It shouldn't take long to confirm my suspicion. Mr. Pratt has been found dead. He no longer requires you to protect his privacy. When did you last see him?
I can't rightly say.
Are any of Pratt's circle of acquaintances here now? How about Eldridge Whitney?
can't really recall. I'm not in the recalling business. The gentleman will get a chill. Please turn the valve.
Hot and wet, a perfect breeding ground for mold. Pasteur would doubtless pay for samples of the captive bacteria.
His institute deals only in virulent and contagious forms, neither of which this is.
Perhaps, but if you don't mind, or even if you do, I'll canvass the other patrons.
I wouldn't, unless you like to visit the hospital.
Under ordinary circumstances, which these are not, I might respect your request. And just so we understand each other, your threat is offensive, unlawful, and, if you'll excuse me for saying so, laughable.
We'll see who laughs last, Mr. Fancy Talker.
Are either of you gentlemen acquainted with Mr. Thomas Pratt?
Don't believe I've had the pleasure. Have you, Dickie? No, I'm quite certain. Now, Pratt I've heard of. Particular eating habits, as I recall. But Pratt, no Pratt tucked away in the old grey matter, I'm afraid. Nice chap, is he? A Neville's man, that sort of thing, what?
Moron. Perhaps the heat has addled his brain.
More likely he's simply stupid.
If these dolts are representative of the new generation of civil servants, Watson, the country is in trouble. Just a modicum of your garden variety muck. What does this place have against regular applications of soap and water? I'm now ready to inspect the baths, Russell.
No, you're not. You've no intention of joining up.
Listen, you muscle-bound twit. Neville's is in violation of numerous tenets in the Code of Public Health. Mould, mildew, common filth are rampant. Let us pass, or I'll report these unsanitary outrages forthwith, and you'll be out of business by this evening.
You made your point. I'll try to keep it clean, but there's too much for one person to do. Can't find any decent help. I'll accompany you. Remember, don't be bothering my clients. You can't walk about unsupervised, mister.
The name is Holmes, Mr. Russell, and I not only can, I have done.
Beg your pardon, Mr. Whitney, sir. As for you, that tears it. Bloody foreign tricks! Get me out of this muck!
Bajitsu is hardly a trick, Mr. Russell. Watson, make certain Mr. Russell remains aquatic. I've had enough of his interference.
With pleasure, Holmes.
A fortuitous meeting, Mr. Whitney. I am Sherlock Holmes. After you've replaced my towel, you might ask if I care. Considering your position, Whitney, you might curb your impertinence long enough to discover my purpose. Your purpose is of no interest. If you continue to harass me, I will take steps. Naked and enervated? Excuse me, but I doubt your capacity for action. As your attendant is occupied, let's talk about the formula missing from your reading room.
That is a ministry matter. You have no claim to my cooperation, and your brother's obvious indiscretion may be actionable.
My brother's judgment is not likely to be challenged. Yours, on the other hand...
Save your threats. They are ignorant and rude. I speak only on the authority of my superiors, of whom you are not one.
At the moment, you are not accused, Whitney. I'm simply trying to gather information.
You'll get none from me. I know my rights and my duties.
I'll ask you once to reconsider your intransigence.
You waste your breath.
No, my speech perhaps, my patience certainly. My brother nearly killed, and you stand on some inflated idea of your own importance. You fatuous twit. We'll see whose breath is wasted. Now, Mr. Whitney, please share your observations and suspicions about the formula's theft.
Do your worst, Mr. Holmes. I am accustomed to long hours in the heat.
The heat encourages Whitney's bluster. I'd like to find his boiling point.
Besides antagonizing him, what can you do?
Put his feet to the fire.
How?
Apply more pressure, Watson.
Oh, excellent idea, Holmes. Quite diabolical.
Could July on the Ubangi be any more unpleasant than this?
Heat appeals to many persons, Holmes.
Laplanders might be happy for the change, I suppose, but only masochists would find it pleasant.
Is anyone whose preferences are at a variance with your own by definition aberrant?
Being the supreme arbiter of right thinking and behavior is a terrible burden, Watson. An awesome responsibility.
I'm pleased your sense of humor has not deserted you completely.
There are few things I appreciate less than being lied to, Mr. Whitney.
I'll try to remember that.
Test my patience and I'll make certain you never forget it. You will not trifle with me, Whitney. Tell me what you know.
I recognize extortion when I see it. This is not a joke. I'm having trouble breathing.
You'll have to do better than state the obvious.
I had no part in the initial disappearance. It was not my responsibility. I do my job very well. I know nothing about this.
But if pressed, innocent as you are, you might speculate about the guilty party?
Yes. Question the Ratchet woman, the Char. She is an internationalist. Have no idea why she's kept on. Could you turn down the heat?
A small taste of Hades for you, I should imagine. Go on.
Many times I've mentioned security is very lax, very slipshod. She could walk off with anything. The heat, Mr. Holmes, could you?
Thomas Pratt has been found dead, Mr. Whitney.
You don't say. Well, nihil nisi bonum de mortuis, but I suspect he had numerous unfortunate habits and the associations to map.
Would you care to elaborate on that obloquy?
The truth defames no one. He was an unhappy man, and I'm sure he indulged in drugs. Died by his own hand, did he?
Hardly. He was assassinated. To punish him and complicate his identification, his face was obliterated. The bullet nearly blew his head off.
Why?
Because he knew something he should not have known. If you're involved in anything you shouldn't be, have a care, Mr. Whitney. Can you conceive of a connection between Pratt's murder and the stolen formula?
There isn't one.
How can you be sure?
I didn't just fall off the back of a turnip wagon. I am mentally acute.
That is palpably false, but for the moment I'll assume you're simply ignorant of a connection. Our conversation thus far has been neither difficult nor painful. It can become both, if you insist.
I have nothing more to say to you on any subject. Just replace my towel and leave.
Where might I find Mrs. Ratchet?
She lives in some East End hovel.
The East End is vast. Where exactly?
Pratt would know. Well, ask Sir Avery. He's palsy with her. Is it any wonder respect for the British Empire is on the wane? She's the Char. I ask you. I mean, for heaven's sake, I don't take tea with a woman.
Fortunate for her. Describe her, please.
She's a plain woman.
Brilliant. Colouring, height, weight, facial shape, teeth, distinguishing characteristics?
Who notices such things about the Char?
If you don't want to be parboiled, you better have noticed something.
On her tea breaks she reads. Everything. Reading all the time, classified documents for all I know. And it makes her squint badly. Probably needs spectacles. Are my eyes starting to bulge?
Not to worry, Mr. Whitney. You're a fine shade of lobster pink. When did you last see Thomas Pratt?
I truly can't recall, except when we pass in the hall or exchange duties at the desk. We had only Nevilles in common. Turn down the heat, will you?
Ideas, Watson?
I'm afraid my brain's on the boil, Holmes.
Merde! Shovel! Take a hike! Merde! Shovel! Take a hike! Merde! Shovel! Take a hike! Mere damnation, blast and bloody hell! Merde! Going east? Blast your eyes! Shovel!
What about our friend Wiggins? Anything to report?
Not a word, sir. Not a sniff of him about. Sorry. It's a big city. Do you know anything more about his habits?
No, but I know someone who does. Combined with the right cosmetics, this would do nicely.